when I first saw this design, I was looking at it and was wondering, what should I do? There are very many topics to choose from that I'm very passionate about, like school, which is weird, swimming, cooking, etc. That's when I realized, why not talk about the thing I am most passionate about and what I'm studying in school? Video games. Video games have been a part of my life just about my entire life. And it really interests me about every aspect of them and all the process that people go through to make them. There's so much to talk about when it comes to video games, and that is why I love this topic. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's start with the evolution. When games were first created, they were first played on arcade machines that you would go out to some place like you see in the movies, like a gas station or arcade place, and you paid $0.25 to play them. They had a leaderboard and stuff, and you're always trying to beat other people. Now, this was in 1966 when Sega, which I'm sure most of you know, all the Sonic games, created a game first called Periscope, which was, implied by its name, an early submarine simulator. After that, in 1967, a company called Taito released Crown Soccer Special, which was a 2-player sports game that simulated association football. Many games would come after these that are still very well known to this day by very many gamers alike, including Duck Hunt, Grand Prix, Missile, Midway, Pong, and many others that followed. These are still known to this day and are still played sometimes by gamers. I could say for one, I still play most of these games. Now let's move on to the evolution of video games. Consoles. The first generation of consoles, or console, I should rather say, was first released by Magnavox in 1972. They called it the Magnavox Odyssey. The Magnavox Odyssey was the first video game console that could be taken home and connected to a TV set and played on. The Odyssey was released different times, each with different names, being the Odyssey 100 and 200, that each served a different purpose on each console. On most of them, they did have cartridges, but they didn't really do anything, because inside the console itself, they had switches that you would turn on to play different games, and that's how you would turn on and off the games. In the second generation of consoles, the consoles started to get more advanced, and the cartridges that the games started to use were never useless and held popular games such as Space Invaders on the Atari 2600 in 1980. Other second generation consoles included the Fairchild Channel F, Intellivision, ColecoVision, and the Atari 5200. As we fast forward through time, we go through 8 different generations of consoles, each with their own unique designs, remote controls, how many players can play on them at once, going from cartridges and moving to discs, memory cards, and lots of other cool features. As I'm sure you all know, that we are now in the 8th generation of video game consoles that can play games in 4K quality. This is a huge upgrade from the NES or any one of the earlier generation of consoles. The NES was one of Nintendo's very first video game consoles that used to play only 2D games and used to move very slowly. There were some 3D games, but not a wide variety. Right now, the newest of consoles, being the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, can play games in 4K. Since we're on the topic now, let's talk about graphics and how they evolved over time. Of course, we all know that we evolved from 2D to 3D games. The first console and game to make 3D games popular was Star Fox on the SNES, a game console created by Nintendo that was made wildly popular. It's otherwise known as either the Super Nintendo Entertainment Series or a Super Famicom. Towards the 5th generation, though, games started to evolve to CDs instead of cartridges. And that was a huge step in from those cartridges. Although cartridges are better for long-term usage, they do not have as much storage as a disc could hold. And as games got into larger files, they had to start burning them on discs instead of cartridges, because all the data of each game stored. Another reason for companies to use CDs was the fact that they could mass produce them instead of having to create every chip for every cartridge at once separately. And this was a huge step forward in the gaming industry. Today, we have video game consoles from game companies that have been around for ages. Nintendo actually has a few of the newer Nintendo consoles out, being the 3DS, which actually still uses cartridges, the Switch, the Wii U, the Wii, all which are still relevant to this day. Then we have Sony, which has the PlayStation 4, the PS Vita, and a few other consoles out there that, especially the PlayStation 4, as I mentioned earlier, can play those 4K games. And a lot of people love it for its at-home usage, and then especially, and kind of the same thing with Microsoft. They have the Xbox One, the Xbox One X, Xbox 360, which is still relevant, and on the Xbox One X, they have started uploading 4K games, And that is why I love video games, because they have evolved so much throughout time, and it's just so great to see something like this evolve. And that is why I want to learn them. That's why I want to learn how to create them and how to manage them, and hopefully one day run my own business.